Nova Scotia is taking another look at how it increases the minimum wage. An arm's length committee has recommended the province conduct an annual review of the hourly rate. The minimum wage in this province is set to increase by 40 cents to $12.95 an hour on April 1st. Hailie Tattrie is an organizer with Fight for 15 and Fairness Halifax. So first off, what are your thoughts about the 40-cent increase next month on April 1st?
To me, I think the increase is laughable, honestly.
And why is that?
I think that it's laughable because Nova Scotians deserve more. The Centre for Policy Alternatives recently came out with a report saying that the living wage actually for just within the HRM, it was over $21 an hour. And we're only getting just below $13 an hour. How are people supposed to make rent? How are people supposed to afford their groceries, their necessities? It just doesn't make sense.
All right, well, speaking of groceries, at the start of the pandemic, grocery stores added what they're called hero pay for workers, an extra $2 an hour. Wondering what you make of the fact that the chains dropped that bump in pay just a few months later.
Extremely frustrating. I mean, we have these essential workers. They work throughout the pandemic. They put their own safety at risk. We give them the hero pay that they deserve. And then to take that away, that to me, it's so insulting to those workers who, regardless of the pandemic, deserve that wage regardless. And, they give them this pay. They say they're heroes. Well, do you really see them as heroes if you're going to take away that money, that little bit of money that you gave to them? Like, that's just so insulting.
Now, Nova Scotia raised the minimum wage by $1 in 2020, and at that time there was concern that would put a squeeze on small businesses that already have tight profit margins. So I'm wondering what you say to businesses who say they might not survive if the minimum wage goes as high as you and some others suggest.
Yeah, so I'm a huge supporter of small businesses, supporting local. But the reality is that this is a myth. A lot of folks like to say, we can't raise the minimum wage. We just can't raise it. We can't afford it. What about small businesses? The reality is, if you're giving people more money and they can actually afford their rent, they can actually afford their groceries, the cost of living, then they're going to have more money in their pockets. They're going to have more spending power, more money to put into the economy. And that's a good thing. That means more people going out to local restaurants. That means more people going into little shops to buy things because you have more spending power. And this is proven. We've seen this in other parts of Canada. People were very worried about small businesses being hurt. When the reality is they weren't. You see this in Ontario. We see this in the States. Like, the facts are there. And something else that I like to mention to folks, if you can't afford to pay people what they deserve, those are poverty wages, and you shouldn't be a business.
Now, the province says it will review its current approach to minimum wage increases. We haven't been told many details of what they'll be looking at. What is it you'd like the review to look at?
What I'd like the review to look at, firstly, I'd like them to take an intersectional approach to this. I think it's important for us to remember that people who are Black, Indigenous, people of color, women, people with disabilities, those who are marginalized, they are especially impacted by low wages. They are the ones who are feeling this the most. So let's not forget that. Let's look at that. Let's see, how does this minimum wage, how low it is, how does this impact these people? I mean, we can look at the homeless population just as one example. We have almost 500 people homeless within the province of Nova Scotia. That's unacceptable. 22% of those people are claiming Indigenous status. But according to Statistics Canada, only 7.5% of the Nova Scotian population are Indigenous. That's a huge gap. 7.5% of people here are Indigenous, 22% are homeless. There's a correlation there. That's not a coincidence. And it's like that for lots of marginalized groups. So that's something you need to look at.
All right, well, Hailie Tattrie, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.